Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the City of Mobile's Board of Adjustment for Monday, October 4th, 2021. General procedures for the remote meeting are as follows. When an application is called, staff will admit the concerned parties associated with the application into the meeting. Once parties have joined the meeting, then the board rules will be covered and implemented such that 4 members in support or 4 individuals in support of an application may speak. Limitation of 5 minutes, and then 4 people in opposition. And at the end of that, we'll give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal, 2-minute time period, at which we'll close out the public hearing. The board will have opportunity for deliberation, and then a decision will be rendered. And then the staff will admit those individuals back into the waiting room so that the next applicants could be, and interested parties invited into the room. All right, let's start with roll call. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Golden.
Here.
Mr. Metcalf.
Here.
Mr. Milne. Mr.
Here.
Mr. Burrows. John Burrows.
I'm here.
Okay.
I had myself muted.
All right, Mr. Morris.
Here.
And we have Mr. Anderson as our legal advisor. So therefore, we have a quorum. It takes 5 to affirm a motion in support. And therefore, we can proceed. Doug, you had something you wanted to state for the board?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, we need to keep in mind that an application to get approved, they have to prove a hardship. I know sometimes it's hard as a board member to think, well, this is a reasonable request. It's not going to hurt anybody, not going to hurt the neighbors. It makes good sense. Let's go ahead and approve it. Just be cognizant on each application, please, that you consider the hardship issue. And if you make a motion to approve, please adopt the findings of facts that are set out in the staff report. Thank you.
All right. Does everyone understand or have any questions? All right. Chair, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the agenda is adopted as presented. All right, we'll start with application 6415. This is regarding 1209 Government Street. And if you'll admit the interested parties into the meeting room, we'll proceed.
All right, I have admitted William Healy to the meeting. He is the applicant. And also just to read into the minutes, we do have one email that we have received in opposition to this application from Hodge Alves III.
Okay, and is that individual present for the meeting or just their written communications?
Just an email. Mr. Healy is the only speaker for this application.
All
Mr.
right.
Healy?
Mr. Healy, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. All right.
Okay.
Your application has been recommended for denial. Would you like to tell the board why we should consider otherwise?
Actually, I've gotten some more information about the situation and I need to withdraw my application.
Okay. So you're
And I
formally
was told I had to get on to do that.
okay. So you're requesting that your application be removed.
Correct.
All right. Doug, do we have to do anything other than proceed with the current agenda?
No vote is needed. Applicant can do that unilaterally.
Okay. All right, Maria, if you'll take them off our list, we'll proceed to the next one.
All right.
All right. Thank you, people. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
You too. Application
Bye.
6409, 2662 Fillingham Street. And if you'll admit the applicant and any interested parties.
All right, I am admitting Doris Bettis, our applicant, and to speak, and we do not have any other speakers, and we have not received any emails or comments regarding this application.
Okay. Ms. Bettis, can you hear us okay? Maria, is she muted?
It looks like she's connected, but I'm not sure if she's got audio or not. It says, oh, she's connecting to audio still.
Okay.
Ms. Bettis, can you hear us? Ms. Bettis?
Good afternoon, Ms. Bettis. Can you hear us? I think we had communication difficulty last time.
Yes, sir.
All right, can you see if she's still muted or connecting?
It doesn't show that she's connecting to audio. I don't see that she has audio listed on my list of participants, though.
All right, well, as I stated earlier, we're going to move on to another application, and then if she can make connection, we'll go back to her. All right, so let's go to the next application, which is 6412, 65, excuse me, 6356, 5279, 5251, 4007, 3892, 2258, regarding 1363 Government Street. Marie, if you'll invite the applicant into the waiting room and any of the interested parties.
It appears that Marie has let the attorney in for this current application.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Yes, I have admitted Shaughnessy Brooks, the attorney for the applicant. And we have 3 opposed comments. Benjamin Bates and Kathy O'Keefe, as well as Ann Stafford, were opposed, but none signed up to speak.
Okay. All right. You said Mr. or Mrs. Brooks? I couldn't tell who the first name was. Mrs. Brooks.
Ms. Brooks.
Ms. Brooks. All right, Ms. Brooks, you're representing the applicant, and this particular application was recommended for approval. Well, let's see here. There's a couple parts to it, I guess. Yeah, both the canopy sign and the digital sign. Is your client in agreement with the staff's recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, and we had 3 individuals who communicated to staff opposition. Have you had the opportunity to be made aware of those?
I have.
Okay. All right, any questions of the board for the applicant's rep?
Mr. Chairman, my question is that we've approved something previously on this site that's more restrictive as far as the monument sign than what's proposed in this application. And I think my thoughts remain the same, that if they can fit a digital sign within the size of the sign that they have, then I could support it, but they're going beyond that at this point.
Okay. This particular location, if I remember correctly, was owned by a different applicant. Is that true, Ms. Brooks?
Yes, it is.
Okay. It was a family-owned station for many years, and the owner came in to apply for the variance. And there was conditions at that time, and I guess they must have lapsed. Is that the understanding?
Yes, in fact, it's the original owner's nephew that purchased the business, and he ended up in March going to Jordan. He is in Jordan now, has been for a couple of months, and so he was not able to get everything in order to get the permit in time. This was intended to be just a renewal of the same request, and he does understand that he has to fit the monument sign within the dimensions that he already has, that he's already using. So he does not intend to make it bigger.
Okay, so the applicant's willing to accept that the sign will be no taller or wider and will be in the same location as the existing monument sign.
Yes, that is correct. And from what I understand, he was working in that direction when his previous approval expired. So he does intend to keep the same dimensions.
Okay, explain the change is there anything different about the canopy sign?
There is not. In fact, when we put this application in, we were not asking for anything on the canopy sign. It was my understanding that that was already handled. I talked with Logan Anderson, and he had told me that he just needed some dimensions on the sign. And once I gave him those, that would be considered a closed matter. So we're not asking for anything on the canopy sign.
Okay. Marie or Bert, can you verify that for the record? So we don't have to.
It is my understanding that the canopy sign is already up, but is unpermitted. So that's why it has been included, so that we can just clear that up.
Okay.
Okay, so it's an after the fact permit.
Correct.
Okay. All right, a couple of conditions that in the past we've considered for these, especially the pricing signs, is that they're static and the light level is reduced after hours so that they don't create more of a nuisance to the surrounding areas than they have to be. Is your client willing to comply with those conditions as well?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And to respond to Mr. Anderson's comments about hardship, I remember specifically with the digital sign, the hardship was the proximity to the street and the safety concern about individuals, employees trying to change the pricing at the time while there was traffic in those areas. It was very close, and that was the primary reason for the hardship. I don't remember any other at the time. If the board has any other comments, I'll take comments. Okay, and Marie, you stated we do not have anyone either in support or opposition aside from Ms. Brooks?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, that'll conclude our public hearing on this application. Comments from the board?
I want to echo Lewis's comments. I just want to confirm that this is the same variance request that we approved before, that there's nothing different except that I guess they're asking for an after the fact permit.
That is
because
correct.
They went ahead and moved forward and did, okay, without a problem. Thanks.
Correct.
And because the drawing that's submitted as part of the application is not what we're approving.
Agreed.
Okay, so they'll have to provide an up-to-date drawing in addition to any other conditions previously established for their prior variance request? Is that your position, Mr. Golden, if you were to make a motion?
Correct. Yeah, and as long as it mimics the existing sign in height and width, no taller, not on a pylon.
Okay, if you'll put that in the form of a motion, I would greatly appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to approve based on the restriction that it be no taller or wider and will not have a pylon. It'll be ground mounted.
Okay, with an after the fact permit for the canopy sign and restrictions to the light level and static for the sign.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Mr. Anderson, does that address your concern about findings of fact?
Yes, sir, it does on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Marie, if you'll excuse our applicant and invite our next
Thank you.
applicant into, well, first of all, has Ms. Bettis been able to obtain audio?
She has rejoined the meeting. If you want to try to go back to that application, we can.
Let's do that if we can before I lose track of where we are on the agenda.
All right, I'm admitting her again now. Let's see if we can't.
And this will be application 6409, 2662 Fillington Street. And let's hope Ms. Bettis can join us this time.
So she is connecting to audio currently. Ms. Bettis, can you hear us? Ms. Bettis?
Mr. Metcalf, when you join with your iPhone, do you have to press any specific button regarding to get the sound?
Okay, well, I see her, but I don't hear her.
You see me?
Yes.
And you got my, okay.
Well, I was just asking though, since you have an iPhone, as does
Yes.
Miss.
Yes, there's a little thing at the bottom and it says, start video and start microphone.
Okay, Ms. Bettis, do you see anything at the bottom of your phone screen that gives you the option to start video or start audio?
Well, I hate to do this to Ms. Bettis, but we're gonna have to move on. All right. Maybe at a later time. Okay, Marie, if you'll clear the waiting room again and
You trying to get on?
yeah, maybe somebody can try to keep getting her on. All right, we're on application 6419. And this is 5 Des Moines Avenue. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And I
And this-
have, I'm admitting Maggie Oliver, the applicant, to speak. And we do not have any comments regarding this application, and we do not have anyone else signed up to speak.
Okay,
Hi, Marie, can you hear us?
yes.
Hi
we
there.
can. Ms. Oliver? Can you hear me okay? Ms. Oliver. Marie, what's happening?
I just heard her
Yeah,
and she's not muted.
Mr. and Mrs. Oliver, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear us?
there we go. And we can see you.
Yes.
Right.
Gotta love modern technology.
All right, you're asking for a variance for a height of the fence, and the staff's recommended for denial. Can you tell the board why we should consider otherwise today?
Sure. So to the first point in the recommended denial, noting maybe speaking to it being unusual, it's a two-story home next to a one-story home, and in our request for the variance, I provided some pictures that you can see, you know, direct line of sight from their property, not only from the first floor, but the second floor into our private living spaces. So that was the first, you know, that was the impetus. That's the reason why we built the fence the way we did. But to answer a couple of your other questions, I don't know if I need to provide this information in a standard way, but there are multiple fences over 8 feet, you know, within a stone's throw of our house. So
Ms. Oliver, can I get you hold for a minute? Murray, we've got Ms. Bettis's application showing on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
yep, that's us.
there we go. I apologize. I just want to make sure we were looking at the right application.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, even on this picture, I can probably point to a few that have fences over 8 feet, probably for similar privacy reasons. And you know, really, I mean, that's our main issue is how close our properties are together. It is, you know, they can see straight into our home. And we wanted to mitigate that issue for our family. So.
Okay, now your home is a single story or a two-story?
So we have a single story home. That's part of the, I think why it feels so intrusive is, you know, they have a 2-story home and it's like they're peering into our private spaces.
Okay, and how long have these residents been adjacent? Have they been there for quite a while?
They've been there a while, yes. We've only been in the home a year. So we've been steadily trying to do improvements to the property and, you know, this being one of them that, you know, we wanted not just for us, but also for, you know, safety of neighbors. You know, part of the plan with the fence is to put a gate across our driveway. We have 2 dogs and, you know, I think my dogs love everybody, but there's maybe a day where they don't. So want to make sure that we're protecting our pets, protecting anyone who doesn't want to engage with our pets from them. And, you know, so we'll complete this fence and that gate, which I also tried to lay out in that variance request. That will kind of complete the perimeter around our house.
Okay, and you have no landscaping or green buffer between the properties, trees or any other landscaping?
No, there were 2 azalea bushes and a good number of what I would consider weeds, and some taller bushes that had grown, you know, unhindered, if you will, unkept. But yeah, no, there's nothing substantial that would provide privacy. Yeah.
So when you bought the property, you didn't, I would suspect you didn't notice this until after you were in the home for a while?
Do you want to go over everything I didn't notice?
No, I'm trying to see the hardship associated with this.
It's okay. No, there's absolutely, we're laughing because there's so many things about this home that we didn't notice.
Did you ever see that movie with Tom Hanks called The Money Pit?
Yeah. I live at that particular residence.
I live in one of those too in the neighborhood, so I understand.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
Now we're talking,
And, you know, I will say this, I don't want
just
to.
want a taller fence.
Yeah, I don't want to detract from the historic value of the neighborhood. That's something that's very important to me. But to answer your question about, did I realize this before?
Taller than 8 feet.
It's hard to explain, you know, it's hard to explain or see or anticipate that before you're living in the house. You're standing there doing dishes in your pajamas and you're right there with your neighbor. So I didn't get that on our final walkthrough.
Right. Okay. Well, I've asked my series of questions. The other board members, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Okay, Mr. Metcalf. Mr.
You
Metcalf.
mentioned, the application is for a 8-foot fence on the sides between the property. Did it also include an 8-foot fence on the front as a gate? Or is that just something she just mentioned?
The gate is
Less than a 6 foot, about a 6 foot iron fence.
It's a-
Iron gate.
It's iron.
It's
Okay.
6 foot iron gate, and I did do a picture of the gate that I purchased in the request. The fence height is 10 feet, to be clear. And honestly, I don't think it would aesthetically be pleasing to go any higher, but it definitely, it definitely could be based on just the height of their house.
Will this fence be seen from the street
Yes, if you,
at some
Yeah.
angle?
it doesn't have, the approximate fence location. I think that looks a little bit more diagonal than it really is, but from the street, I think your main view is going to be that first post and the iron gate connecting it to the house.
All right, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions of the board for the applicant?
I just have a quick question. So the blue line, is that the section that is 10 feet?
Correct.
Okay, and then so for the rest of that north line, property line, then it drops down from there?
Correct. So it ties into where you see the garage.
Uh-huh.
That's a standard 1-story garage carport structure. And the 10 feet ties in or stops there. And then the rest of the perimeter is, I think, probably at 8 feet.
Okay. And is it all wood? Wood
Yes.
Correct.
All wood.
fence? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other
Mr. Chairman,
questions? Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Metcalf.
one more question for the applicant. Have you talked to your neighbor about it
Yes.
and they're cool with it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the board? Yeah, I have a question. Previously, or currently, what's in that area? Is there an 8-foot fence?
There was nothing there at the time.
So no fence between the properties?
No, sir.
There was nothing.
Okay,
A couple of azalea bushes, which I have preserved.
okay. All right, once again, any questions of the board? And Marie, we had no public comments on this application?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, and no one in the waiting room other than the applicants?
Correct.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Oliver, what would be what would you state as the primary hardship? The
Lack of privacy between the two homes.
proximity between the homes and the height of the two structures?
Yes, sir.
Height
Okay,
disparity between the two structures.
there you go. All right. All right, well, that'll conclude our public hearing on this application. And I'll defer to the board for a motion.
I move for approval.
Okay, with any conditions or as requested?
As requested, and I think that that some of the findings of fact are inaccurate about says no existing conditions exist that are similar. I think there probably are. And based upon what they've told us, I recommend approval.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Make sure you have a current permit for your project.
Yes, sir.
Thank
All
you.
right. Have a good day.
You too.
Take care.
Marie, if you'll invite our next applicant into the waiting room as you excuse Mr. and Mr. Oliver. And this will be for application 6420 regarding 3340 Lee's Lane.
And I have admitted the applicant Roxanne Eaton to the meeting, and she is the only person signed up to speak on this application. And we have received comments, some additional comments from the applicant that were forwarded to you, as well as an email in support of the application from Earl Warbington today.
Okay, can you pull up the information regarding this application? There you go. And I see Miss Eaton on the line.
Yes, I am.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Your application was recommended for denial by the staff. Would you like to tell the board why we should consider otherwise?
Yes, we purchased this property in June, and we wanted to be able to spend quality time on that lot. And we put in a request with the power company to get a power pole put on there. And it took them probably over a month to respond. Well, they never responded. And when we contacted them again, they said that we needed a variance. Our hardships, one is that we do want power and need power, because we can't even stay out there at nighttime, spend time out on our property at night without electricity to have some light, like a dusk to dawn light on the pole, and there is a cabin on the property, but we also would like to be able to spend an extended hours there, and water would be necessary to have restroom facility. And we have already paid the water company, I think about $4,000, where they connected our water and sewer at the street. It's not connected to any facilities, but we have paid to have it put on our property at the street level.
Okay. So how the cabin or the building is already on the property, the structure?
Yes, it is.
How long has it been on the property?
I think it was like the second week of July that it was placed on the property.
And it's described as a cabin. It's described as a cabin on the drawings. So is it like a storage building, or is it a small one of those very small homes, or how would you describe it?
It's one of those buildings that you could buy like at Lowe's, that they might even have some smaller ones parked in their parking lots, but it is 14 feet wide and 40 feet deep. We didn't purchase it from Lowe's. We purchased it from a private seller who had already put some interior walls where there's a bathroom within that with a sink, commode, and tub. And then there's a kitchen area, but there's just a sink in the kitchen area and some open cabinets, but no other no other appliances in the
So,
building.
so if you had water and power, somebody could actually stay in this facility or in this structure?
Well, it's not completely finished off, and we have no intentions of living in it, but it could be a livable space.
Okay. All right. And Marie or Bert, this is considered ancillary because it's not occupied?
Because the primary use of the structure is not to be a residence. It's not going to be built as a house, and it will not be used as a house. So therefore, they're having to get the variance that they're requesting.
But if they build it out to be a house or a livable area, then it would, if it had utilities, would it comply?
If it were to be permitted as a residence, then we would not have any issues with that. We would not be able to prohibit, we don't know if someone's staying there full time or if they're only coming there intermittently. We wouldn't be able to regulate that.
Okay.
This is, I'm not sure a building bought in the parking lot at Walmart or Lowe's would qualify as a legally sufficient R1 structure, even if it was to be permitted.
That's
It's
kind of
true.
where
It
I'm
could
going.
not, it probably would not meet building code requirements to be a residence as such.
I think what you have to consider this, I mean, she said it's not their intent to use it as a residence, so their intent is 100% as an accessory structure, which is not allowed.
Right. I understand. I was just trying to see what the potential would be should this turn into more than just an ancillary.
It's not a Walmart building. It's a barn that was built that can be used as a.
All right. Any questions of the board for the applicant that we haven't already heard?
I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate that although we aren't intending to stay there, it could be used for that purpose. These types of buildings, I think Lowe's sells similar. Well, there are multiple places that sell these open interior structures. Now the previous owner has put some interior walls, but like I said, it's not completely finished off, but it does have a separate bathroom that's walled off on the interior. And so we believe it could be utilized as a living space.
Okay, you understand what Mr. Anderson's statement was, that it may not meet the code requirements for the structural, the way it's been constructed for that purpose. That would be something they would have to determine. Okay, once again, any other questions of the board?
Yes, I do. I'm the co-owner.
Okay, your name and address, please.
My name is Joyce Eaton Pritchett.
Yes, ma'am. And what?
Okay, your address. My address is 1056 Westbury Drive, Mobile, Alabama, 36609.
All right, well, thank you. Can you tell us why we should consider this?
Okay, number one, this is my sister. We're both retired and we bought this waterfront property. The building she described, Lowe's and Home Depot do not carry this type of building. It's a barn cabin that they use, and they make like little houses out of them, tiny houses. So it is built that it can be residential. And there are codes that they do meet when they build these. You see them along where they're for sale on lots where they have them. They come in any size from maybe 12 by 16 to this particular one is 14 by 40. And can be used as a residence. Like I said, they use them to make tiny houses. It's not a storage building that you buy from Lowe's or Home Depot. It's not that type of structure. It has lofts in it. I mean, a lot of people do use them as residents. They make them, you know, into residences. It's just that that's not our main intent, is to use it for permanent housing. But eventually the idea is that we will fix it up where if you want to spend the night there, you can, once we get the proper permit and we're able to get the water hooked up and get lights there.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the co-owner? Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It appears that there is some misunderstanding on the specifications of this building and some misunderstanding here as it relates to the intent of the applicants, and that was to have this as a resort. You know, you wouldn't want to have a place like this on a waterfront and not have the necessary utilities to even have the luxury of staying overnight or on the weekend. And as I'm understanding the applicants here, they're merely trying to just have a place like most of us would love to have, and that is to be able to get away from everything and have family and friends to come over into an area of this nature. The intent, it appears, when they purchased it was not to be restricted and bound by what we would think Lowe's would sell. And I think that they have clearly expressed that when they purchased it with the intended specifications of being able to not just have to go there during the day and have to leave at night, go there and not have the utilities of water, etc. And I think they're in a precarious situation here as it relates to what they have invested and now what they're up against as it relates to being able to have the full pleasure of this facility. And I'm just trying to see how best we as a board can work with this family in this situation.
Let me add, this is Doug. Let me say this, and I'm saying those comments. I think for us to work with them, any hardship here is self-imposed. It's a financial self-imposed hardship, which does not qualify as a hardship to support a variance. For them to achieve their intent, I think they need to have that structure outfitted and completed pursuant to our building codes, and then they wouldn't need a variance. But the hardship, this is an R1 lot, and there's nothing keeping it from being used as an R1 lot. They just want to use it as a recreation area, which our code does not allow without a residence being on site.
Okay, Murray, I got a question. How did this come to the board for consideration? Did they have someone report it, or was it just they went to try to get utilities strictly with the power company and it brought it to the board?
It was the need for utilities on the property.
Okay. Do we have pictures for the board to see that illustrate the structure?
Yes, we submitted pictures with our application, and including a couple of drone photos that give you a good aerial view.
I'm hoping Miss York there can show those to us.
Mr. Guest, can I ask a question while they're doing that?
Yeah, please.
Ms. Pritchett and Ms. Eaton, again, in the spirit of trying to help work with y'all, did you understand what Mr. Anderson said? Because Ms. Pritchett, based on your comments, that it is, you know, more than a shed. It's more like a tiny house. I mean, could y'all go ahead and finish it out so that it would be more in a position to be permitted as a residence and you can get your utilities down? Because, you know, the struggle we're going to have is that, you know, we have to, you know, to see a hardship, and you know, that's right now, that's something that, you know, seems to be self-imposed, which would not justify us approving this application. But if y'all were to move forward and to go ahead and finish it out, you know, based on what you've said, that it can be turned into a, you know, tiny house type situation, would y'all have, you know, can you go ahead and do that? And as opposed to trying to move forward with a variance application?
What kind of time frame? I mean, and I understand you're saying it's self-imposed, but I
There's no
mean,
time frame.
there is no time frame?
No.
Well, let me ask you this though, but while we need power, construction power pole to have that done, which is what we originally applied for before we put anything on the property. We went to Alabama Power and asked for a construction power pole. They never did anything about it. And unfortunately, we're not very familiar with, you know, what happens with construction. This particular facility came available within a month of us buying the property. It was a very good price, so we went ahead and bought it and put it on the property. And then after putting it on the property, after we never heard from Alabama Power, we went back and applied to get power. And at that time, they wouldn't put power, you know, out there because of the type of, because it's not finished as a residence. And they said we would need a variance. So is it going to be possible for us to get a power pole out there to even complete and have it set up as a tiny residence?
Bert or Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would have to get a building permit before the power company would give them a construction power pole. Is that right?
Correct. A building permit would have to be obtained, which would require showing that the structure meets building code requirements. And once that building permit is issued, then we would also be able to approve a pole.
Ms. Eaton, Ms. Pritchett, do you understand kind of the chain of thought regarding trying to get this actually permitted as a residential structure and finished out versus trying to get a variance? Because you have to show a hardship as stated, and the fact you put it there before you found out you couldn't necessarily do it the way you had planned may not qualify for the hardship, depending on how this board should vote. So you may have some options on a better result.
We understand.
Yeah, it sounds like we're trying to give you some guidance as some options so that you don't necessarily lose out on your, you know, your use of the property as you intended. With that, it would take you a little time. You'd obviously have to get with the staff about the permitting process and what would be necessary to finish it out should it qualify. Would you like to withdraw your request at this time so that you have time to work on that? Or how would you like for us to proceed? Because you'll have to wait 6 months if the board should deny your request.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last comment.
You would have to wait 6 months for a variance request before you could reapply if we were to vote to deny today. But if you withdraw it, then there's no time frame. It's more to do with your permitting and how you handle it with the city.
Mr. Chairman, quick question for staff. Is this, let's take just hypothetically, the structure they've purchased and is sitting there. I mean, is that going to be considered a mobile home? And is that allowed?
At this moment, it's more of an accessory structure without a primary structure on the site. So, and since it's not really a residence, I'm not sure if we would necessarily classify it that way.
But we're kind of
Um,
trying to help craft a solution, and that would be that they go get a building permit. And not that we're necessarily recommending anything, but trying to just discuss it. This
Golden.
structure,
Mr.
Well,
Golden, we
mobile
would
home-
need to see more information about the structure to see if it is built as a manufactured home, which is a mobile home, or if it is built to the local international building code standard. So they would have to submit drawings or certifications to the building code department for us
Okay.
to review.
all right. And I just think I want to make sure they understand what this alternative route includes, and it's going to include a lot. They need another manufacturer, obviously, and be able to get you some specs on it. But anyway, just wanted to make that one point because a mobile home's not allowed, correct?
Not without planning approval from the planning commission.
Okay.
All right, so you have a dilemma. Do you wish for us to conclude this hearing and vote for consideration of your variance, or would you like to withdraw and have time to look at your other options? Ms. Eaton?
Let us clarify the point, please. You're saying if you vote today and we get turned down, in 6 months, we could reapply. Is that correct?
That is correct.
If you vote, okay. What do you want to do? Let's just go ahead and get a vote, because. Yeah, we'll just get a vote, because it's gonna take time and to. Because we weren't gonna complete even the plans that we already had within the 6-month period, so we wouldn't have anything completed as far as getting a building up to code in probably earlier than 6 months. Now, can I ask another question, please?
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me ask staff something. So if we were to vote to deny today, what would they have to do?
They would have to remove the structure from the property.
Right. I want to make sure you understood that there would be a requirement to remove that structure.
If it can be permitted, if they can get it permitted under our building code, Marie couldn't, I mean, they could keep it and finish it out. But if it does not qualify as a habitable building under our code, then yes, they would have to remove it.
Correct.
So now let me ask you this. If we build a house on the front of the property, are you telling me we can't put anything we want at the back of the property?
No, ma'am. You wouldn't have an issue. If you have a house there, you can have a gazebo, cabin, fire pit, grill outside on the river. That's no problem.
As long as there's not a second.
Okay, but if we withdraw our petition today, do we have to remove the structure, knowing that we aren't occupying it? So it's not.
Perhaps if you want to keep it on the property, then you would need to begin the process of having plans drawn up to get it permitted to show that it does meet building code requirements to be a house to be on the property.
But it stays there while we're going through this process with no issues.
If you are able to communicate with staff that you are working on that, then we can work with you.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We will withdraw our request.
That's again, though. If we withdraw, do we have to bring, how long can we do, we have to remove it?
How long will we have to work on getting it up to code if we withdraw our request today? How long could the structure stay there before we have our building permits in place?
That is something, it would be difficult to give a specific time frame on, but again, it would be something that you would have to work with staff on, and there would need to be some communication going on to make sure that progress is being made.
Okay,
The
one
best
other
an-
question.
The best answer to that, ma'am, would be you need to show that you're moving forward with the permitting process in good faith. You just can't sit there for several months and do nothing. But if you're proceeding with your permit process, then then the city would allow it to stay pending the outcome of that permitting.
Yeah, you would buy some time while you're working on the permitting process as they determine whether will meet the requirements to stay as a structure.
Okay, I have one other question. There's a business like 400 feet away. And if this is R1, how were they allowed to have a heavy construction business put there? The neighbors say no variance was done. It is a single property that they put the building on. Is there any way you can tell me how that's allowed, that we can have our shed there?
I'll have to defer to staff to investigate and research that.
Because we're talking about 3360 Lee's Lane is where this commercial. There's a commercial building business is taking place. And my last question is, right across the street is rated light industrial. So also, can somebody explain why this is in such a violation? And then right across the street is not even residential. There's nothing across there yet, but it's rated light industrial.
Because your property is zoned R1, and that's what we have to look at. This is not a
That's what you have
rezoning.
to. Okay.
Yeah, we're looking at your property specific and what the zoning requirements require.
So if we put just one thing, if we put a house on this property at the front of it, doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what size or anything, as long as it's a dwelling that we got a permit for that says that it's a livable dwelling, we can have whatever we want at the back of the property. Is that correct?
You could not have a second dwelling on the property, so you would not be able to have a full kitchen in a second structure. But
Right.
yes, you could have a habitable structure on the front of the property and then build accessory structures as long as you are subject to your setbacks and site coverage limitation.
The accessory property, it can have a bathroom and a sink. Is that correct?
Correct, but no stove or oven.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Mr. Davis, you need to ask your question.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman and members of this board, that the mere fact that the family is inquisitive to the degree that they are is showing that they're trying to conform and operate in good faith. And I was just hoping, and I'm listening to counsel in what's being said here, but I was just hoping that something could be done to give some relief to this family's, although we've classified this as self-imposed hardship. But then they bring up the situations around them in this R1 thing where you have other businesses that are in the area. It seems to me, members of this board, that we have a situation here that really requires us to just not handle this as business as usual. It seems to me. However, I want that to be registered in this meeting because this family has gone through a lot trying to do what they were not aware of, and now they are being brought up under the jurisdictions of the code buildings and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm very concerned about where we are right now and how this family is being left in limbo according to parameters of the law that we are operating
All right, thank you. I would say in response to that, we had a similar application a year or two ago. I think it might have been on Dog River. And that individual had taken a storage, I don't know, utility facility that kept expanding on it until it became more of a camp, as you might say. And that particular application, I think, was denied. I don't remember the outcome, but and that was more so because the neighbors complained, and it had become more than just, you know, a small ancillary facility. But Ms. Eaton, you have to think about what's best for you and your interest as it relates to this property. If pursuing the variance is what you wish, or would you like to withdraw and step back and maybe consider getting it permitted as more of a residential structure, if it'll meet the requirements?
Okay, let me ask you this. The neighbors submitted evidence that they were in agreement with us doing this because we've improved the property for them because it was grown up for years and years. We've had it bulldozed and cut. We're pursuing a lawn there. Have you seen the correspondence from the neighbor on this?
We understand that. We're glad to hear that you've got neighbors that are in support, because that makes it easier sometimes to consider an application. But once again, you need to think about how you want to approach this. Do you want to step back and take the time to look at all avenues of possibly making it a permitted structure, or do you want to go for the variance? And I can't guide you any more than that. You know, Mr. Anderson and the staff have kind of told you what you'll have some time to think about it and work out the permitting process and review, as long as you show good faith effort to meet with them and start that process.
Okay, I mean, we're willing to do that, but I would like to bring this up that one of the neighbors who called down to inquire said that he was told that we're trying to pull a fast one. And I mean, we're just two sisters who should have done more homework, more research before doing this, but we're not trying to pull anything. We had no idea that we couldn't just put that structure there and use it in the way that, we wanted to. Perhaps one day some family member, down the line, and we even looked at down the line, possibly building something, but we had no intent on trying to go around the law on this. We just did not know.
Right. We appreciate you're trying to comply. All right. So I've got to ask the question for the sake of time. How do you wish to proceed?
We will withdraw our application at this time, and we will coordinate with the staff of the planning office there to see exactly what we need to do to get our cabin approved as a livable structure.
Okay.
So we are withdrawing our application as of right now. We will pursue getting either that structure or another structure that's approved as an R1 home on the property.
All right. Well, the board wishes you luck with your project then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie, if you'll clear the waiting room, and we'll move to our next application. Have a good day, Miss Eaton.
You too.
And we'll be on application. Oh, wait a minute. Did you say Miss Bettis finally got into the waiting room or not?
Yes, I do have her. She is trying it with a different way. So I think that we'll have success with her this time.
All right, let's try it one more time.
All right. I'm admitting her now.
All right, Miss Bettis.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And if you've got a speaker or something in the background, are you trying to watch it online too?
What I need to do? Yes.
Is that her?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Bettis, if you have your computer on watching the live stream, if you will mute that, we're getting some feedback.
Okay, we were kind of cut the. Okay, we were trying to get the. Hello, yes, I'm here.
All right. This is application 6409, 2662 Filling Street. Ms. Bettis, you're asking for a reduced number of parking spaces for a church in an R1, single-family residential, and it requires a certain number of parking spaces, and the staff recommended for denial. Can you tell us why we should consider otherwise?
Well, we're considering cutting down the size of the building from a 30 by 50 to a 35 by 35 because we're a small congregation. And if we need more parking instead of a larger building, we're willing to go that route.
Okay, what was the dimensions again you were considering?
We were asking for a 30 by 50 building. We're willing to go down to 35 by 35. That we may get 6 additional parking spaces that would give us 12.
Okay, and Bert, what would be required for a building of that size?
Church parking requirements are based on the number of seats in the sanctuary. So we would need to know if the sanctuary seats are going to be remaining the same.
I think it will require 57 seats for a 30 by 50.
So
You said 57.
Proceed, Marie.
All right, so for 57 seats, then we would have a total amount of 19 parking spaces required.
But that's based on the previous dimensions.
Based on the number of seats.
Okay, we're willing to cut the church size down to 35 by 35.
And so how many occupants would you propose for that size facility if you're reducing the footprint?
Sorry, I missed that.
How many seats are you expecting a structure of that size will accommodate?
Probably at least what, 35, anywhere from what, 35 to 40? I didn't.
So Marie, would 12 spaces accommodate that occupancy if it's approved by fire and all the other?
If the occupant load of the sanctuary is reduced to 40 seats, then 10 seats or 10 parking spaces are required. So yes, 12 would be sufficient.
Okay.
And it would not need a variance.
It would not need a variance. Is that my understanding?
Correct. If they do make that change, they do not need the parking variance. They still need the planning approval from the planning commission, but this application would not be needed if that is what they're wanting to do.
Okay, Ms. Bettis, you understand that you will not have to request a variance if you reduce the footprint and run it through planning commission?
Okay, yes, sir. So we don't have to go back and we don't have to go back to the planning commission if we take the size of the church down?
No, ma'am. You do not need the application that is before the Board of Adjustment today, but you would still need the planning approval from the Planning Commission.
All right, we will still need the planning approval. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, are you willing to withdraw your application based on that information?
Do we have to withdraw it?
No, you don't have to. You could go.
Can it just be held over?
Or do you want to hold it over as is being recommended until you go through planning?
Do you want to hold it over until we go through planning? Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, Marie, is that acceptable?
That's up to the board.
Would 60 days be sufficient for you to get your site plans updated with your reduced structure size? Ms. Bettis?
So we need to get with you said the,
The planning commission. You'd have to get your plans updated and submit them to planning commission for review and consideration.
Well, they
okay,
already
we gotta
have
get them updated.
application that's on this week's planning commission agenda. So that is already in progress, and that commission has been holding on to that determination to see what the board decided with their parking variance.
Okay. So we can go ahead.
That's your discretion if you want to go for the variance today, or you want to wait till you maybe modify your site plan to show a 35 by 35 foot structure and reduce occupancy.
Okay. So we can go on to the next meeting this week?
You're on the planning commission application agenda regardless of what happens at today's meeting.
Okay, good, good.
So I pose my question again. Do you want to hold over until you talk to planning commission about maybe a reduced structure?
We want to hold over.
Okay, with
Yes, sir.
60 days should be sufficient.
60 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
fine.
So I have
So
a
that's the
request to hold.
December 6th agenda.
All right, so we have a request to hold over for 60 days. Do we have any communications either in support or opposition we have to consider today, Marie?
We do not. We did receive one opposition email from the first planning commission agenda that this was on, but that is the only communication that we have received.
Okay. Any questions of the board? All right, the applicant's requesting a 60-day holdover. Chair, entertain a motion.
Move.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the holdover, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Good luck, Ms. Bettis.
All right, thank you kindly.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
You as well. And
Yes.
we are on application 6. Marie?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is the board okay to continue? Does anybody need to take a break? All right, let's continue then. This is application 6421, 101 Ridgelawn Drive East. And if you'll admit the applicant and any interested parties.
All right, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have admitted Wilson Thomas, the applicant, to the meeting. He is the only speaker we have signed up, and we have no communications regarding the application.
Okay. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, sir?
Doing fine, thank you.
All right. Your application has been recommended for approval. Have you seen the staff's comments and conditions?
Sorry, could you say that again? Since you said recommended for approval and?
And are you in agreement with the conditions that were listed by the staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, and as staff has stated, we have no one in support or opposition in the waiting room today. And we did not receive any communications regarding this application. Therefore, the public hearing regarding the application is closed and the chair will entertain a motion.
So, Mr. Chair, subject to staff recommendations.
Okay, a motion to approve subject to staff recommendations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, have a good day, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Yep. All right. Marie, if you'll invite the next applicant and any interested parties. This is application 6422. And I think Miss Abby Davis is representing the applicant. Okay, do we have Miss Davis?
I have admitted Abby Davis and Clayton Laguerre for the applicant today. We also have received 2 emails opposed from Mark Fillers and Rick Courtney. And we have no other speakers today. Just a quick, I don't think it makes too much of a difference in the consideration of the board today. But after reports were published, engineering did let us know that there was a change to their comments in that a land disturbance permit will not be required if the variance is granted.
Okay. And so we have 2 individuals in support of the application in the waiting room. Is that correct?
They have been admitted to the meeting. We have Abby Davis and Clayton Laguerre.
All right. Ms. Davis, can you hear me?
Yes, hey there.
Good afternoon. The staff recommended for approval this application, and as they stated, a land disturbance permit would not be necessary based on engineering's review. Are you in agreement as the applicant's rep with the conditions?
I am, yes. I agree with the staff findings and recommendation for approval.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant's rep? Let me ask staff something. The ATM machine seems to be the one thing that was a sticking point with some of the comments. And that's because it's freestanding and not incorporated into the building?
Yes, that is correct. And the parking lot is actually a separate site from the building. So there's a building that the bank does not own between their building, which is infill, and the parking lot, if you look on the site plan.
And and Jeremy, you can probably tell me more about this. The downtown development, was it prohibited to have freestanding ATMs based on their?
The downtown development district regulations do not specifically prohibit, but they do not allow them either. So because they're not addressed in the downtown development district, the variance is required.
Okay, do we have others in anywhere that, especially those of you that are in the real estate business might know, that are similar in nature? Seeing how we're having a precedence?
We have a couple, I know of 1 or 2 that are off-site. They're not freestanding. They're in a wall or a building on Royal Street, but they're not where the bank is located.
Right.
But freestanding, Adam, Jeremy, I can't think of one.
I don't know of any.
I can't think of any.
I don't think there is, Doug.
I'm kind of picturing these are almost like the parking kiosk. I mean, it's probably similar in size.
Well, and that's what we were trying to do. If you look at that elevation, we were trying to make it look built in more or less with these columns surrounding it. And there's actually the sign above it where you kind of pass under this surround. So it looks it looks less freestanding. Than it's not going to look like that kiosk because we've got this pretty wall and enclosure around the front of it where you enter into it.
And that's the parking lot for the bank, right?
That is, yes.
Okay, and the signage will be compliant for the district?
The signage, just the way I was explained to Marie, you can expand on this, but due to the variance on the ATM itself, we also have to get a variance for the signage. And there should be a blow up, a bigger image for y'all to see, but the bank just rebranded. It's a nice, simple logo that we were just going to put at the top so that people are aware that this is their ATM.
Okay. All right, well, I have no further questions. Any other questions or comments from the board? And seeing how it's not prohibited or permitted, it's unique.
I have a quick question, Mr. Guest. I'm sorry.
Please.
Abby, the bank, did they purchase that lot?
Yes,
Okay, so they own it.
yes, yes. It was recent. That's right.
Okay, thanks.
So that parking kiosk is now gone. That was there, but it's no longer there.
Yeah.
Okay, and Doug, from a findings of fact, the fact that there's no prohibitive use of this property for that purpose.
Yeah, the fact that it's not addressed in the DDD and the fact that they own this property, I think would be the good findings of fact.
Okay. All right. Marie, we have no one, once again, well, we do actually have Clayton. Does Clayton, you have anything to add to this? Seeing how it's recommended for approval?
Sure, no, sir. I definitely don't. Aside from saying that as CEO of Merchants and Marine Bank, we're delighted to be in downtown. We're very excited to be able to invest in the downtown development district and not only bring the building that we've purchased back to life, but give the parking lot a new facade. We're just excited to be a part of the community.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would say that concludes our public hearing on the application. Staff is recommended for approval subject to conditions. As stated, the applicant's in agreement. Therefore, the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion to approve subject to staff recommendations
Yes, sir.
or conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further business or any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you. Marie, if you'll clear the waiting room, and Mr. Anderson, do we have any other business today?
No, sir, I do not have anything for you today.
Okay, and Marie, that concludes our public hearing. I do not believe we have anything else on the agenda.
We are done. Yes, sir.
And our next meeting will be in person at Government Plaza.
On November the 1st, we will be back in person unless something changes between now and then, and you'll hear from us if it does.
All right, well, thank everyone for being here and for giving me your time, because I know I probably kept it a little longer than it would have been.
Hey, Marie, is Margaret out?
She is only going to be in the office on Thursday this week.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that'll conclude our hearing today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Recording stopped.